Okay.
Okay.
So we're good to go?
So back to Willis.
Okay,
So-
I'm done.
No, remember where you were?
I'm done. No.
No.
Any more about the connection then? I know. Are you...
Oh, you mean how I got to Waikalua
So
Loko?
the last I heard, you were upgraded to groundskeeper, right? And then we got cut off. And then did you get any more upgrades after that?
No, well, that I just have to balance that with school groups coming to the fish pond. But that other part dealing with groundskeeper and or maintenance, that was quite a challenge because the mangrove out there is one of the most prolific, rapid reproducing plants there is, I think.
I think so.
That's right.
You know, one tree produces maybe thousands of pods, in a year, maybe more, and all those pods manage to settle in and sprout somewhere in the fish pond, and you got to hunt that down. You got every one of them,
And the prop roots. Oh my
and the prop
goodness.
roots.
For one plant.
The prop roots protect all the other plants. It makes it impossible for you to go in and weed. So
So if
that
you have a
alone is a
chainsaw.
learning experience.
Except if you have a chainsaw.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
that was a
it-
learning experience.
Yeah.
That's why it took us 26 years to
get-
finally get the last
I
mangrove
can't
out of the
believe you
pond.
got it. Oh, no.
Mhm.
It's hard
I never
work.
thought it would.
Yeah. Yeah.
They keep growing again.
But
How many students do you estimate that you were able to teach after you retired from Castle High?
oh,
the time that you were
probably 3,000 or 4,000, I would say.
Wow.
Because we had about 3 or 4 schools a week at the fish pond.
That was remarkable, I thought.
Yeah. And then almost all of the schools have, the Hawaiiana curriculum. And it's probably impossible for you to go through the curriculum without coming across the fish pond, the Hawaiian fish pond, which, by the way, is unique in all the world.
Yes.
And that says something about our ancestors and their knowledge of science, actually. I'm a science teacher, so I can make the connection very easily when I see something that they had constructed or designed.
Yeah.
What went into the thinking in that design, and how much knowledge about the ecosystem or individual species, their life cycle, all had to play a part of that.
Yeah. And they were able to thrive in putting all of it together in the context of a fish pond.
That's correct. And the fish pond is a concept, and it has different parts. And because of that, a lot of the fish pond resembles each other. It all comes from a basic model. It's as if one person built all the fish ponds in Hawaii. Because you can count on the makaha being there, you can count on the freshwater input from a stream being there, and then the wall having that curvature going out to the sea and then back to the point of land where it started. So in the absence of written language, I don't, there must have been a discipline, some kind of kahuna that specialized in building fish ponds. So
And passing on that knowledge from generation to
that's right,
generation.
passing it on.
And hopefully improving
Yeah,
on the design of it, would you say?
yeah, and a lot of legends that embody their knowledge, and we don't have too many legends, but they must be out there. you know, because that's the way they passed on knowledge.
Amazing. So Colette,
Yes.
what brought you to the pond?
Oh, what brought me to the pond? I think I first heard about the pond from Nepali, National Pacific American Leadership Institute. I attended in June of 2005,
Oh.
and you presented, I believe, right? You were there. You were telling us about this pond that called you, the kahea, or the calling of the pond. And I live Kāneʻohe here, right? So I live not too far away, only about not even 10 minutes away, and I had never been to this pond, but you had told us about it at that particular leadership institute. And then I think my son, his teacher was from St. Anthony's in Kailua. He was going to school there. And his science teacher, Mrs. Clinton, used to come and bring her kids who lived here to the pond, right? And so I had heard about it there, and I've seen these sign-up sheets, and my son never wanted to come, by the way. But I knew about the pond, but I'd never been here. So I think it was about a year, maybe a year and a half after my Nepali experience in 2005, that I thought, I just got to go. I saw the notice came through. There was going to be one of those community work days, right? And I thought, I better go. I got to try this, check it out, right? And so I did. And from that point on, I was hooked. I don't know, it was a community work day. And I got muddy and dirty and wet. And it was just wonderful. I don't know. I think I grew up in Kaimiki in town. And I'm one of those kind of Hawaiians that was a townie, so I didn't get dirty or muddy enough, I think. So I just love getting muddy and dirty. And I was sort of addicted at that point, right? And then I started in my Hawaiian history class. I used to teach Hawaiian history at KCC for about 24 years at KCC. And so I started doing service learning from my students, and so I allowed them to go out into the community to do service projects, and it would replace another assignment for them, yeah? And so I started encouraging them to come out to this fish pond. So all these students from town would start coming over here on Saturday, and I'd meet them here, bring them, and I loved working with my students in the pond, so I know they used to divide us up into work groups, and we do different things. So I think I've done every single job here, and I know I don't like doing the mangroves because that's stinky work, and I've got scars to prove it about how hard it is to move those mangroves, right?
But the limu was calling
Limu,
you.
I love the limu. I love the limu every time. So there's a certain point where I tried all the different jobs, and then at some point, I remember by the time I was on the board, starting in 2011, I know that every time we go around, who's going to do what? It would be like, oh yeah, yours is limu, right, Colette? You guys always assumed I do the limu, because after all the different jobs, I realized that was the most fun for me, is to do that. But over the years, I brought students in my Hawaiian history class would come, and then I started doing the faculty development, and so I bring faculty from Kāneʻohe Community College to come out here, and that was amazing to be able to, so students would have to write like a reflection about the pond and what they learned from this experience, and it had to connect back to Hawaiian history, which was easy, right? It was just a reflection of their experience. The faculty, we would have these talk story sessions afterwards, and we'd find out all these stories from them of what they learned from the pond. But I always say that when you go out with your class into the environment and do something together, a shared learning experience, there's something about that changes the dynamics when you get back into the classroom. Because you've all got dirty together, you've all got sweaty together, you're all trying to figure out as a team how you're going to do this, right? It's a different experience. So by the time you get in the classroom, the dynamics are different, and they're okay with asking questions, right? They're not ashamed in front of each other. They know each other by name, right? And I love all the different projects I've done on the pond over the years. I just would come every community work day and invite all my students, and sometimes faculty. I keep encouraging them to come out as well. I had interesting conversations with faculty that we'd never, I'd never have those kind of conversations outside. And just, I don't know, it was a great bonding experience. And I can picture in my head all the different people I've come to the pond with and the shared experience with them. And to me, that was the best. But my first time on the pond, by the way, I was doing mangroves, and it was very stinky because every time you pull up mangroves, oh my God,
Yeah.
it's stinky. It smells like sewer, right? And
That's sulfur.
Sulfur dioxide, gas.
the person
Yeah.
I was working
Natural.
Yeah.
the person I was working alongside was Nelda Quensell. So Nelda Quensell taught botany at Kāneʻohe Community College. She was my teacher when I was a student at Kāneʻohe, right? And so then here we are side by side pulling out mangroves, she's, we're talking story, and it's like, it was just pretty cool. So that's how I got sort of, fell in love with the pond.
I kind of
guess.
remember that
Yeah.
breakthrough. Remember one day you showed up at the community work day and said, my son is here.
One time.
Yeah,
One
I
time.
know.
It was
And
a
then
great
your
thing.
husband.
Well, he came to the potluck.
Yeah.
That's right. My husband said no.
So,
no, it wasn't his
okay,
thing.
now the whole family has had
Yeah.
made a connection.
My
now.
son did work one time pulling out limu in the pond with me at one time, right? And I think we ended up meeting that one particular day. He ended up meeting some snowboarding Olympic gold medalist or something. She was this wonderful athlete, I guess, and she was just out here in the pond, right? So I used to always joke with people, whether it was the pond or in the taro patches, you know that everybody's sort of equal when you're working in the pond.
Right.
You're all bending over with your butt in the air, right? I mean, that's pretty much it, right? We
Right.
all look exactly the same. It don't matter whether you're a teacher or a student or whoever.
Right.
We're all doing the work together, right? It's this teamwork, and it's all paying attention to the
It's
the
a
land,
great
right?
equalizer.
It's a great equalizer, excellent equalizer. But it's a wonderful shared learning experience,
Yeah.
right? That's what I loved about the pond. Yeah.
So speaking about that, you know, over now 26 years have passed, and there's been a lot of highlight moments for all of us, and particularly, you know, and you kind of touched upon it, you know, about the impact that an experience like this can have on students.
Mm.
What would you say would be a highlight experience in terms of, you know, what the pond has been able to do for students in general?
Well,
Or-
it gives them concrete experience to begin with.
And yeah, Willis, you've been in
And-
the classroom for a long time,
Yeah.
you know,
yeah.
and how do you think having I like to refer to the pond as like the annex of the
Mhm.
castle complex and Windward Community College, right? This is part of our community classroom. And how
Yeah.
important is that?
Well, if you, you know, attain a point where, you know, you've had that concrete experience, you have shared experience. So, you know, as Colette was saying, you know, you're able to communicate more freely,
Mm-hmm.
and then in a more friendly environment once you have the shared experience, you know. And although, you know, Colette really rose to the position of the queen of limu, you know, because when
I love those
we
claws.
plan a Saturday work day,
You volunteer
we reserve the limu collecting
to me.
for
Tons
Colette.
of limu.
yeah.
And we're
um,
taking out
Tons
tons.
of limu.
Yeah.
We got
Literally
the pictures, right? The big
tons.
mounds of
That's
limu.
right.
Right.
Yeah.
But when I would tell people as they were coming for the first time to the pond to collect limu, when I tell them that we would just dry it out and then the taro farmers would come and collect it and use it for their taro patches. And then they thought, wow, this is cool. At least we're doing something, right? We're cleaning out the pond and then we're actually helping the farmers as well. So that was really cool. And so I just love the limu. I don't know. It was just, I could see the actual pile, right? You could actually see it. You could actually get together. I mean, there was a whole technique to it. And on a hot day, it's cool to be in the pond, right?
So what can you share, like, what is your best technique for limu removal? I know we had all kinds, but what stands out as that you would want to pass on to the next generation?
Okay, I can tell you what doesn't work. Going around with your one bag and your plain hands are not going to work very well, especially if you don't have tabis on. So one, you got to have right footwear. So put your Japanese fishing tabis on, right? Those are the best kind that they stay off. The socks, right, will stay off. And it's because you're going to sink in there. And I've seen people who try to go with just one bag and they try with their hands and they scoop. It's like, that's not productive, right? It's going to take you a long time. But if you have a team of people and you have a boat, right, and a small boat that's near you, and then you can have people manning the boat, and you can have a crew all going. If you go in teams of two, in pairs, one person holds the bag open, right? And these is typically like what is it, like potatoes? No, not potato sacks.
Burlap bags.
Burlap bags, or like
What
it's
are the
netting
bags
kind
we're
of bags.
using?
What kind of bags
Actually,
were we
Fred
using?
made some bags for
Yeah.
us. Right?
That's right. He
Nice.
made some bags out of
nets.
old netting.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
And so those are the best, right? Because you could
Yeah.
pile them all up, and then Fred made those claws, right? I call them the claws.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I love the claws. So it's got these wooden things, and it has these metal points there, right? So
Yeah.
you grabbed onto the wooden handle, and you can scoop. If you go two like this and you scoop them into the bag, the person standing right next to you, and then you just trade off taking turns, right? Because then the person is going to be so back after a while if you keep doing that the whole 3 hours. So you trade off, and then you have the boat not too far, right? So everybody's in their pairs, and then the boat not too far, and you call the boat over and you dump your bag, right? And then you get another bag and off you go, right? And then you get to fill up the boat with plenty of bags, and then you bring it out to shore. And everybody was always so proud to be dragging that boat to shore, right? And then you just unload all of the bags, right?
And it creates a big mountain.
Big mound, right? And you can actually take a picture at the end, right? Right next to all your mound, and you're all proud of it with your claws in hand, right? It's
Yeah.
I don't know why that was so fun for me. And even though sometimes you come across crabs, right? Like you get not the big crabs like the salmon crabs, but
Yeah, the
I would
small
always
big
tell the
ones.
students, don't go in a circle. Because if you go in a circle, you're not going to give the crab any place to go, right? Somebody's going to get clawed, right? So spread out, go in pairs, right? You are in their territory.
Yeah.
Just don't mind them, right? Sometimes you get the little ones, right? But other times you get, I think somebody did get.
Yeah, we did. We did
And I
have
just said, I told
a
you not to
student.
go in a circle. I told you not to do that.
Yeah.
Right? And it was really funny. You watch the different groups that would come along, right? That the young ones, I would like seeing the families. So, the little kids and then the parents come. And I think sometimes they were doing it for Kamehameha schools, right? Because they got some kind of scholarship and they're supposed to do hours. So you can tell at the beginning they're not too thrilled. It's like a requirement. But sometimes those kids at the end was like, you could tell they're just so happy to get dirty and muddy, kind of like me, right?
We couldn't get them out.
Yeah, they just want to stay there forever, right? And it's like you're finally giving them permission to get muddy and dirty, right? When normally people are staring at screens, they got earphones on, right? They're not really interacting. And the thing about being in the pond is you can't have any electronics because it's going to get... So now you have to communicate with everybody, right? And communicating with everybody that's kind of, I think about how the Hawaiians must have worked side by side with each other, and a lot of talking story must have happened in that time. You're getting to know each other, telling stories, whatever. And so I've met a lot of cool people along the way and watched people grow and see them coming back multiple times, seeing families come. It's been kind of cool watching that. Yeah.
Yeah. Willis, how about you? What kind of highlights that could help students in the future, maybe?
Well, I from my standpoint, as a science educator, I would like to have the students visit all aspects of the pond, and something as simple as observing the high water mark and the low water mark, can be important because within that 2 points, it's called the intertidal zone. And then there are certain kinds of organisms that live right in that intertidal zone. But like I say, if the students have that exposure, it becomes more meaningful.
Yeah.
When you talk about how, let's say the sea snail has to travel up the wall on the kuapa as the tide goes up, and he's got to go down the opposite way when the tide goes out, So there's a lot of instinct that animals rely on to survive, and you can observe that. And, but again, it's that concrete experience and that opportunity to make those observations. And then there's like a simple thing like the all that gorrila ogo we were talking about, when they realize that this is an invasive species, they understand how rapidly an invasive species can multiply in the fish pond. For example, a student might come and collect a lot of limu at one visit, and then a month later come back and find out there's just as many limu as there was the last time he was here,
Yeah.
So so that idea that these invasive species can grow without any kind of barriers or restraints is something that they can appreciate. And for the teacher, when you refer to an organism as being invasive, they understand what you're talking about. It's a species that doesn't have predators or diseases to control the population, their population.
Yeah. That's very important because we in Hawaii, we have probably the most invasives, but we also have some of the most remaining native species as well. So it's kind of like,
Yeah.
it's a delicate balance even now. And
Mm-hmm.
I would think, as we project into the future, what is going to be the concept? Now, we definitely live in a global, awareness now, unlike any other time in human history, right? Because of technology. So now as we think about, how do we take these lessons learned and experiences that we sort of, were able to recapture, from our ancestors that built these 400 years ago. How do we take these experiences now, and what message would you want to leave for the generations of the future in terms of building upon this and projecting for the needs of, the future generations and being able to continue to live in Hawaii? What message would you like to offer them, or words of wisdom or advice, going in the future?
Well, right off the top of my head, be careful with what you introduce into Hawaii. Because that plant or animal becomes a different kind of plant or animal when they come to Hawaii.
Yeah.
Okay, and there can also be other problems related to importing plants and animals from different parts of the world, and sometimes they can bring parasites with them, and those parasites can be deadly against our native species. Okay, that's one problem. So, you know, and sometimes you can never tell if you, for example, you're bringing in sardines. In the sardines might be mullets of a different species that we have, and that mullet becomes competitive with our native mullets. Like, for example, we have the Australian mullet in the stream here, in the fish pond here, and it's they somehow slip through, and there might have been good intentions for bringing in outside species or exotic species, but you end up with unintended consequences.
Yeah.
So that right
It's
off the
hard to go
bat,
back.
you got to be
You gotta
careful
go back,
about
right?
that in the future. Another thing is, there's a lot to learn about the fish pond, and I think every generation will add more knowledge as to how we can preserve and restore the fish pond. It occurs at different levels. One can be in the physical structure of the fish pond, and the other part could be the functional aspect of the fish pond, such as the ecosystem or the abundance of fish in the fish pond. One problem we're facing, for example, right now, and this is for our generation, is the mullet population is declining. And how does that impact the fish pond? Well, the ocean, and in this case Kaneʻohe Bay, is a source of the young mullet or the pua. And the pua population is declining as well. So it's a problem we can solve, but it'll take a lot of resolve on the part of people at the fish pond and the community and our political leaders.
Yeah.
Because they would have to, divert resources to an attempt to revive the mullet population.
Do you think that we can propagate fish as these ponds were originally intended again?
I believe we have the technology. We have hatcheries, fish hatcheries that can spawn mullets in captivity, which is fairly new technology, and the pua can be released into fish pond and also into the wild. You know, so that gives you some buying time. That technology gives you buying time to address other concerns dealing with the mullet, such as the quality of its natural habitat, the stream, for example. You know, the ocean with a lot of pollution, and well, even the fish pond has a lot of pollution. As you know, we always cleaning out plastic material from the fish pond. And you know, in addition to the natural environment, there are regulations that we can improve to make it so that we can perhaps place a bag limit on the amount of ama a fisherman can take in any 24-hour or something like of that nature, you know, until some point where we can figure out whether we can lift such a restriction. Or there could be some places around the islands that can be kapu or reserved for mullet spawning, you know.
Okay, great. So Colette, what message would you want to, based on your experience at the pond, and what message would you want to leave for the future generations, and to help, you know, in the stewardship of Hawaii going forward? And how would fish ponds, you know, be perhaps a catalyst in the future?
Yeah. So for me, I'm a historian, right? So what I wanted my students to experience was sort of like what our ancestors went through, right? So in the work that's involved in a fish pond, right, and maintaining a fish pond. And I think I wanted them to kind of understand that our ancestors, our Hawaiian ancestors, were intelligent. They were hardworking, right? And you get that when you start looking at these fish ponds. You go, they're intelligent. They're hardworking. It takes a lot to maintain a fish pond.
Yeah.
It's smart. It's intelligent. It's amazing, right? And so I think, and then what we're adding to history now, and I guess in the future, what I mean, besides the scientific sort of stuff, for me, I look at the history part of it, and I'm going, they need to sort of understand that this pond is it's a community classroom, right? It's what we've developed. It is more than just the fish that's in the pond. It's something else that we've kind of created in these last 20 some odd years, right? Where the whole community has had their hands in this pond, it seems like, right?
Yeah.
We brought so many, thousands of students have come here, right? And I would hope that going forward that they'll remember that we can bring back our ancient ways, right, in a modern sense, right? We can use both science, the modern science, and we can use the ancient ways, and we can make the best of both of them, right? And we can figure out how to do that. So this hopefully will be an inspiration for, it's not lost. One, you don't have to go back to the way it was in traditional ways. You don't have to. You can bring that forward, take what's best from that, add what we know from science and our modern knowledge, and make a go of it. So maybe if in the future this becomes a place where we are getting fish, and maybe that's a great thing if we can help, you know, propagate fish again. You know, it's sad that we spend so much money in the stores, and we get all our food that's coming in on Matson containers, right? And we just don't feed our own people anymore, right? But the pond almost has a secret that maybe we could in the future, maybe feed our people, right? If we take the best from the past and we combine that with our present knowledge, and that's, I think, the lesson of the last 25 years or so, right, is that we can bring both together and really make it an educational pond. And I think that's what's different about Waikalua Loko, right? The community has invested in it. The community have gotten, you know, their hands dirty, and they've come and they've participated in that. It's a community pond, right? At that point, right? And that's amazing. Is it the only pond that's in, like, purchased in the nonprofit hands, or are there others?
Well, there are others that are owned by Kamehameha School already,
right.
so they're not in jeopardy. But
Yeah.
and there are not many of them are, as far as I know. There's one on Kauai that is, you know, is owned privately, and community has kind of taken it over.
Yeah.
Alekoko, and but we're we're the exception to the rule, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's not many ponds left.
Right, and even
So-
in Kaneʻohe, right? Used to be plenty in Kaneʻohe
Yeah.
Bay, right? Like there used to be plenty in Pearl Harbor too, right?
Right.
And
Waikiki.
now- right, and we don't have them anymore.
And
so
they're pretty
what-
much.
how many do we have left on this island, right? So
Yeah.
this is a great showpiece of what could happen, right? Because it's almost lost, and we brought it back from almost extinction, kind of.
Right.
Many of them have been filled in and all across Kaneʻohe Bay, right? We'll never see those again. But this one we're able to bring back to life, right? You were able to do that, and many hands have gone into bringing it back to
Exactly.
life, and that's the amazing part. So I'm thinking that in the future, when some kids or grandkids or whatever are coming, and maybe when they're referencing this pond, it'll be like, oh yeah, that's where my grandpa used to go work, or that's where we went when we were kids, right? And these community connections, multiple generations, you would hope that it would perpetuate itself, right? That people feel like they're invested in this place. We must keep this going, right? And so that's kind of amazing. We're making our own history, I guess, by just participating in the community work days, coming and getting involved. Yeah, so me, that's the history part of it.
Great. I love it.
Mhm.
I think it's great. That's like
Mhm.
two different perspectives, but very much integrated in the success of it, and more importantly, how we want to carry those bridges between these ideas and concepts forward,
Right.
because they can coexist.
Mhm. Right.
And we are building bridges between indigenous knowledge and
Right.
contemporary knowledge,
Right.
because the problems that we face today are, we need all of it,
Right. Mhm.
and it's the connections have been fabulous. So, any other last thoughts that you want to share that come to mind that you haven't been able to share about this experience so far?
Well, what comes to mind is right over there on the north side of the bay is a fish pond called the Nu'upia
Right.
fish pond, and that's an interesting place because it's very large, and it's right on the border between Kailua and Kāneʻohe.
Right.
And at one time, the fish pond divided Oʻahu from the peninsula until the road was built to connect the two. So, if in the future the public can get access to that fish pond, there's another learning experience over there.
Yeah. And that's owned by the federal government because it's part of the military base.
Right.
And hopefully it'll be protected as well for a long time. So, and we, in our journey over here, we did spend some time over there in the early years trying to learn about how to do fish counts and things like that, with some of the scientists over there. So, yeah. And Kaneʻohe Bay is one of the few places in Hawaii, like Molokai and other places where there's still quite a number of ponds left, so that whatever is remaining, between Molokai and Kaneʻohe, I think we're it. There's sporadic others in different parts of the island, but in one central place, not as many, right, anymore. Waikiki is gone,
Right.
Pu'uloa is gone.
Right.
I know there are some, organizations that are restoring, but so any last thoughts,
So for me,
Colette?
the thing that comes to mind as I'm looking at this pond and thinking about just our recent past with this pond is now at Windward Community College are two of our most popular classes, especially for early college. So we have these college classes we're offering in the high schools, and students get dual credit, right, for high school and college credit. And IS 201, which is our Ahupua'a class, is real popular, and it blends the Hawaiian science with the Western science, that's
Yeah.
what the class is about, looking at the Ahupua'a. And then our Aqua 201 in the lab, which is the fish pond class, right? So like we're struggling now trying to figure out who's going to teach that class. We're looking for someone who meets the science minimum requirements, right? So we can hire somebody with a master's in science, but who can speak Hawaiian language, because the Hawaiian immersion schools need that class taught for them, right?
Right.
So now we're at this interesting point where we need more scholars like that. So it would be great if we could raise up scholars who can teach those classes that are combining the Hawaiian science with the Western science, right? And teaching that in Olelo, Hawaii, in Hawaiian language at our schools. So right now I'm in this sort of quandary, trying to find a teacher who can teach that. So now there's a need, and we have a science, there's a whole science class you can take on fish ponds, but just find the teacher for it. Right? That's the hard part right now, right? So if we can raise up some students who've come here, gone through, can go and get their science degrees, can learn to speak Hawaiian and can teach those classes, it's very popular at the moment, and we're kind of short on teachers. So that's what I was thinking about, because I think of how so many classes, so many schools have asked us for that class because of that combining of science, Hawaiian science with Western science. That's a tough one right now. It's the staff at the moment.
So are you challenging
the next
generation to kind of get their act together?
Get their act together. Go get those master's degrees in whatever the field is, and get it in and learn your Hawaiian language, because if we can blend the two, man, there's no stopping us. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, the university had a similar problem with not being able to offer marine biology as a understudy program. So a group of students and professors got together and they designed what is called the Marine Option Program.
At
And-
WCC.
So there might be a fish pond option program
Yes, let's get them
where
going.
part of the curriculum
Right.
involves a fish pond
Right. So let's
up
start
to so many hours.
Start training them here, so we can get them to teach our
Yes,
classes.
we want that. We want that.
Right.
We want that.
And bring the students out here. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank
Are we
Okay.
good?
Yep.
Good.
I think we're good, guys.
Good.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome.
Thank
You
you
have to
very
remember
much,
we're plugged in.
everybody.
Perfect.